if I was the Sixers, and this is just me talking, I'd be doing everything I could to go all in this year. I think they have a real chance to win. I think if they had a difference-making player, they become, to me, the favorites possibly to win the title. And after they beat Denver the other day, and Jokic and Embiid went at it, Embiid had a dominant performance and won. I have never heard him talk about his team the way he did after that game. He is really excited. He, I think, believes in this group. I think that group believes in itself as a whole. You see James Harden is playing great. He has settled into a really nice role there. They've got Tyrese Maxey coming off the bench. He's accepted that role. DeAnthony Melton bounces that starting lineup out. You saw PJ Tucker play great in that game, really shut down Jokic, got up into him, totally messed up Denver's dribble handoff stuff in the second half of that game. If I was Philly and I could add a difference-making piece, I'd be really aggressively trying to do it. The real thought for the past month or two has been the Sixers are right now just a little bit over the tax line. The main thought has been Philly's probably just going to get under the tax line, and that's more or less what they're going to do. So I think they're like maybe $1 million or $1.5 million over. But if I was the Sixers, I'd be pretty aggressively trying to get better because this thing is wide open and they've got a real shot. And I think their players think they have a real shot and they have some ammunition to go do something if they want to try to get aggressive. And I don't know what they're going to do, but I'd be trying to do it.
What's the Daryl Morey quote that's sort of become well known?
5% thing.
What was it?
If you have a 5% chance to win a championship, basically you go for it.
They've got a 5% chance.
And yeah, so this Daryl Morey's MO is absolutely to go for it. And again, it's similar situation to the Nuggets, like probably the biggest glaring hole in your roster, in your rotation is also the least important spot. That's because you got an MVP candidate at center. But
I don't even think that's a hole because PJ Tucker, I think, will be playing backup center in the playoffs when it comes down to it. But I'd be talking about it. To me, I'm talking about like trying to trade for guys in the top 7 rotation spots in the playoffs, like the move Boston made last year, getting Derek White. Obviously, Derek White's not going to trade to Philly, but I mean, like that kind of addition. You add a difference-making player like that to this Philly roster to upgrade what they've got. I think you've got to put them right at the top of any list of teams that can win if they do so. So I'm really interested with the way they've played the past several weeks to see how aggressive they are over the next week. Cause I think I think to me, they've impressed me to the point where I've moved them up a bit from where I thought they were. And I think they've got a real shot. And I'll be anxious to see, to your point, Tim, Daryl's has never been shy about being aggressive. Let's see how aggressive he is over the next week to try to make this team better.
And what about, you mentioned Boston. What about Boston?
I would guess, I think the most likely move the Celtics make is to move Danilo Gallinari and save money. I don't know if they're even going to do that, but if they just traded him to, say, Indiana for some seconds, it would save them tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, I just noticed they haven't paid the tax in a decade or like 11 years. They're paying $60 million in tax. No, they're doing well. But $60 million.
If they just have to be San Antonio for some seconds.
Indiana still got about 10 million, and they got Gallo Gallo was traded to San Antonio, so he'd have to. I mean, he could in theory get rerouted somewhere and ended up in San Antonio, but they could only trade him to Indiana or somewhere else. But
they do. The one thing Boston has is that they have some guys that they could sort of cobble together. They could take Peyton Pritchard and Blake Griffin and Sam Hauser, like put those 3 players together, and you'd be able to get the money up to where you could make an offer with a future pick.
But that's still not very much money. I mean,
you could take Gallinari and Peyton Pritchard and even get closer.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think there's a chance. I mean, look, maybe they try to add, some sort of supporting piece, but I think it's more likely that they just roll with what they've got. I know they've scuffled a little bit.
They could use another big man.
I guess. I mean, people keep talking about that, but to me,
Actually, I don't. Let me just rephrase that. I should stop messing around. I hear Boston is looking for another big man.
Yeah, okay. I mean, there's been some talk about that, and I could see some merit in it. At the same time, I don't really see these guys expending any sort of significant asset to add, a big man, trading a first round pick for a big man or something. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's not a big on the market that if they trade a pick for, they're going to be able to replace what Robert Williams does if he gets hurt. So to me, maybe they add a depth piece, but Luke Cornett, I think, has been fine. Their top 8 is really good. They feel really good about their team. I think they have to get something pretty significant on the table to look to move more picks to upgrade from where they're at.
Could the Mavs interest them in a slightly used Christian Wood, a guy who I know the Celtics sniffed around about when he was on the Rockets?
I think it would be tough. I think it would be tough to get them to do that. I just don't, because then you're talking about probably trading one of their main rotation players. I just don't see them doing something like that. I mean, who knows? Maybe they will, but I would guess
so. The one kind of significant name that we haven't talked about is Bojan Bogdanovic from the Pistons. This is a guy who I couldn't believe we got traded for what he got traded for.
Yeah.
Considering the hauls that they got for Gobert and Donovan, that they just didn't wait to see because if he had played this well in Utah, I think they could have done better. So, I understand, but it's not a written law of the United States of America. So
it's the one non value trade that the Jazz have made in the Danny Ainge era.
Well, congrats to the.
I'm not sure Danny Ainge would agree with that though, because he really likes Kelly Olynyk.
Look, Kelly Olynyk is a nice player. He's not as valuable. Like the Jazz ain't, nobody's given up a first round pick for Kelly Olynyk. And I think that's certainly a possibility for Bogdanovic, but it sounds like the Pistons are like, hey, we want to be competitive next year. Cade's coming back. We're getting a high lottery pick. We need Bojan knocking down jump shots, scoring an efficient 20 points per game, and being a vet in the locker room.
They also signed him to a very palatable and team-friendly extension, which some people thought in the league, they're like, oh, they just signed him to that to make his value more because he's the classic guy that if you try to trade for, he's headed to unrestricted free agency. You might not be able to keep him. And people thought it was a maneuver to make him more valuable in trade. But why? Why does that have to be the case? Also, I just am not hearing his name out there. I certainly don't have the market cornered on trade rumor stuff, but I just haven't heard his name. So I know that's the name that a lot, the Laker fans have been dying for months. And
the Mavericks fans have been dying for him too, but
Cleveland fans have been dying for him. I'm like, you're not getting him. I do Cleveland radio. You're not, they ask me every week, you're not getting Bojan Bogdanovic. Forget about it. But
what a humble brag. I do Cleveland radio.
Yes,
celebrity that we deal with.
AM. I'm a member of their team. Thank you very much.
I guess if I can plug the hit YouTube
we do no.
I was going to say, you can get that one in.
I was going to say, there's nobody promoting anything on this pod, so God forbid.
Did we forget anything? I'm sure we did.
I'm trying to. I think we wanted to maybe hit on the Hawks coming off of a blowout win in Phoenix.
Phoenix had won 6 out of 7, looking like they had some traction.
Getting Devin Booker back next week.
Coming back, I think Tuesday, Woj said. And then the
here
Hawks
in Brooklyn
just smacked them. When I went to bed, it was 35 points. The 35-point spread when I went to bed.
The absence of Dwayne Washington Jr. was really felt in that game.
Hey, the Suns have done some decent end of roster maneuvers. Damian Lee is one of the leading league leaders in 3-point shooting. They got nobody else wanted him. But that's neither here nor there. Atlanta has been hard to read. I've said that I've actually felt that they've played a little bit better. John Collins has been in so many trade rumors, but so many of the trade rumors are 3-team trades. I wish I had a share of Apple stock for every time I've heard a different 3-team iteration of a John Collins trade rumor over the last 17 months. And it's he might get traded next week, but it's very, very hard for me to seriously think it's going to happen, because I've been through the ringer on this a number of times. I don't know how you feel. I know that Utah, you were saying earlier that Utah may buy. That's a player that has been attached to Utah.
But I'll say this. But I think that one is unlikely, because I think Utah would say, hey, we like the player, but not at that salary for that, it's not a good contract. So, hey, and we can give you pieces that can help you now. Again, we can talk about, we mentioned all the guys. The pick's the pick or whatever the draft capital is has to go from Atlanta to Utah. I think that is difficult. Obviously,
no way. Atlanta's looking for a pick for Collins.
Exactly.
Sending
so
a pick out.
That's why I think it's going to be extremely difficult. I think it's going to be extremely difficult for them to get that kind of value.
That does, by the way,
Collins.
30-second timeout. That does sound like a Danny Ainge position to take.
100%.
All right, we'll take John Collins and a first.
Yes.
What? That sounds like a position he would take.
Look, the Jazz are certainly going to be leaning even harder into the typical Danny Ainge position, which is I'm making a trade when it's good for me. And
squeeze.
Because if the Jazz make no trades, doesn't really matter. They have 1 billion picks already. They got all these young guys. They're doing just fine.
Although the one thing I will say, they were talking about just how boring the draft was. I've actually got a story coming out, and that's what I lead with. Danny Ainge was just so bored in the draft. They didn't have, they had no picks. They had nothing going on. They're over the cap. Like Danny Ainge, if he just wanted to chill in a rocking chair, he could have done that. He could go play golf. He still does play golf a lot of days, but he could go play golf he's ready for, he's about the action right now.
He likes doing stuff, but again, only on his terms. He ain't just going to do it for the sake of doing it.
But back to Collins. Hey, if it was easy to get value for Collins on that contract, it would have been done several trade cycles ago. Let's just be honest, right? And the other thing that I have heard is that obviously there's been a regime change in Atlanta. Landry Fields, not sure if he's the youngest GM in the league, but certainly one of them, not too far removed from being a player, can relate to players in a way that few, if any, other GMs in the league can. And I've heard there might be some hey, man, we still love them up a little bit. Hey, it can still work here. Rah, 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 sis, boom, bah. I've heard that's a possibility as they continue to take calls on them.
Well, might be a possibility out of necessity. So
a couple of midseason regime changes in Atlanta, and also Matt Ishbia apparently days away from getting control of the Suns. So that's kind of hard to.
And that puts James Jones in a very interesting position. And I'm not going to sit here and say
not the James Jones that I know. I'm going to tell you something about the James Jones.
Okay.
The James Jones that I know is going to do what he wants to do, and he's not going to get pushed around, or he's not going to get made to hurry up. And if Matt Ishbia wants to have a different front office there at some point, okay. But the James Jones that I know is very rooted in what he intends to do. And Monty Williams is the same way. They are on the same wavelength there. So, look, if the owner comes in and says we're going to do something, obviously the owner has the team. But
right.
I don't think James Jones is going to that's not who he is. That's not who he is. That's not the team that he built. So I'm sure the Suns are looking at things to improve. They have been for a while. They're in a
they might want to eventually trade Jay Crowder instead of I
cannot fathom them not trading Jay Crowder and ending up having to buy him out. But the favorite for weeks there has been Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if at the buzzer and if there's no 3-team trade, they just take what Milwaukee's offering. Maybe that's what Milwaukee isn't improving their offer. Or at least doesn't seem like they are. So they did allow Jay Crowder to go meet with the Bucks. Jay Crowder hasn't played a game since May. I don't know. But I don't think it's gonna be because James Jones is being pushed around. That's my reading the situation from the outside.
Well, I'm just saying that the new owner, I think there's some uncertainty moving forward there. And then just naturally, dude, Chris Paul starting to like, hey, is he, tap back into the fountain of youth? Has he gotten some, whatever? But like, you talk about a team in a win now situation, that window's closing. So without even the ownership change,
I mean, the Chris Paul window is closing, but Devin Booker. One thing that's happened in the last few weeks is Miles Bridges has been unlocked a little bit. I don't think he's headed to be, a perennial all-star, but without Booker, they moved Miles Bridges from being a stand in the corner player to a wing player, and he's done some stuff. I don't think he's going to be crossing dudes over and pulling up, but he's like 6'7" with really long arms, and he creates separation with it, and he can make shots. And again, they're not going anywhere unless they got Booker being Booker.
Mm-hmm.
But like they might have actually found some stuff with Miles Bridges. That is, I'm not writing off the Suns at all. No matter what they do at the deadline, the West is too uncertain.
Not Miles Bridges.
What'd you say?
Not Miles Bridges. The other Bridges.
Thank God.
Yeah,
I'm not getting enough rest.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.